Hi, hello, welcome
Hello.
to Directly to You. It's episode 243 of the Redirect Nintendo podcast. I am AJ. I am joined by Parker. We're Redirect. I've never said that combination of words before, I'm sure. in that order. But anyways, we talk about Nintendo stuff and whatnot. We're going to talk about Zelda a lot to begin that. We want to talk about some comments made by Aonuma-san.
Yeah, that's the one.
Go tell him, Parker. You love him.
Yeah, for sure. So all the other topics that we're going to talk about are a little bit more related to each other. This one was a little bit different. So just to kick us off before we get into the meat of the subject is that Aonuma said he is interested in a Zelda movie, which, you know, we've talked about before, considering the Mario movie and stuff like that. But here, let's read the quotes and then things. Mr. Aonuma said, the question was, just to ask you another question you probably can't answer. Does the recent success of the Mario movie have you excited for the prospect of a Zelda adaptation? And Aonuma said, I have to say, I'm interested. For sure. But it's not just me being interested in something that makes things happen, unfortunately. And Fujibayashi said, maybe the voice of the fans is what's important here. So they're saying, yell really, really loud, and your voice will make it happen.
So
everybody on three.
Well, not
One,
everybody.
two.
No, you don't want to yell that.
Oh, just the fans.
You just want to yell that, no, don't make the movie. I want a series.
True.
Because you want the series.
I do want the series. This is true. So there it is. So yeah, from the mouth himself. What do you think?
I'm down for a movie. I hear your argument for the series. I think a movie could also do a similar thing. It would just take more waiting, which
yes.
But yeah, they could definitely do multiple movies if they wanted to. I think that honestly they could do both. I think Zelda now is a big enough deal where they can do both and people will watch it. It is like, it's not literally like Spider-Man level, but it is around that now, where it's like people watch an animated series and then also watch a movie in this universe and then watch a movie in a different universe and then watch a series in this one, you know? So like they could do that, and they kind of do it already with the games where they're already like separated in this like weird way, where some of them are like Link Between Worlds, and then other ones are like Ocarina of Time, and then other ones are Breath of the Wild. And every Link is different, and every Zelda is different, and Ganon. There's even different Ganon and Ganondorfs within the same thing. So like if there's any Nintendo franchise that's like suited to being in multiple different mediums, Zelda is one of them for sure. Probably the best candidate for that in that regard. Just because they can have so many different tones if they wanted to.
Yep. I mean, because that's why I'd probably... real quick. RP said the video's still on the ending screen. Is that for everybody or just for...
No, that is
right
just the projector for people that are listening. Matter of fact, that's a good enough segue to the housewarming stuff. If you want to support this channel, you go to youtube.com/watchredirect or twitch.tv/watchredirect and give $4.99. In exchange for that, you get loyalty badges, you get access to our supporters only Discord, you get a bunch of other stuff that's all on our Patreon. You can check that out. But related to what RP was talking about, you can watch us record this show as we record this show, and you can let us know when things are broken. It's not broken for you as you watch this, but you get to see the nuts and bolts in the thing, and I'm going to fix that so everybody that is watching live can see it.
Nice.
Also, if you're listening on podcast services, go to your respective podcast service and rate. Doesn't matter what you rate, just rate. It helps us out in stores and whatnot. I almost got it fixed.
Look at you multitasking.
There we go. Go live.
Nice.
It's good now. We're good. Perfect. But now we're going to talk about freaking Tears of the Kingdom all the
That's
live long
right.
day. Because oh boy, it is a game. So how do we want to do we want to do it literally like in the order that it like with the topics that are related, and we tease people until we get to the what we're playing
Your call.
segment?
I'm easy.
And then, I mean, I guess we can talk about all the news related stuff, and then we'll get
Sure.
into the game, because I don't think it's going to
Yeah.
take that long to talk about the news related stuff. So
Yeah, I could see that.
Let's do that.
So yeah, first bit is just a pretty straightforward one, is that Tears of the Kingdom sold over 10 million copies worldwide in the first 3 days, which is just
Really cool.
a tremendous amount of
Surely
sales.
is. It
I'm
surely
sure
is.
everybody's seen like other breakdowns or whatever, but in case you haven't, in case we are your source of news, just for some context of these numbers, the record was set by Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for the like fastest selling single console, your console exclusive game, basically. So that was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This has sold in the ballpark of the same amount, 10 million to 10 million. So like, probably some numbers are kind of up and down a little bit. Who's to say which one's where exactly? But a key difference is like this one even has the slight differentiator that it's not 2 SKUs. So that's,
And it's $70.
and it's $70, and it's not the holiday season. So it's like,
Yep.
not that it's like any kind of competition or anything specifically, just to show that like, wow, this game is just selling gangbusters.
I think the 2 games distinction is like exaggerated. In
Yeah, for
general.
sure. Yeah.
Because
it's probably
if
like
anything-
a 1.2 times buff to sale, maybe.
I think even that I think is like big. Because for
Probably.
the most part, like there's definitely a segment of the audience that buys both. Like I bought both. I usually buy both. But one, I think that is super impressive, because that like they're spending $120 on a video game.
Right. Yeah.
And on the other end, it's like it's not most people that do that. That said,
Yeah.
what is the differentiator here is that $70 price point. Like it
Yeah, for
being
sure.
$70 and like it set like outpacing. I mean, obviously it was going to outpace the original, because the original was mostly at
Launch
the time that it
game and-
launched was a Wii U game, and then it eventually grew with the Switch. So it was like, yeah, like of course this game was going to outsell it, but to outsell it that much is crazy. And specifically something I saw earlier today, and I tweeted it out. It is the seventh fastest selling game in Japan, period. Which is
Yep.
crazy, because Japan until Breath of the Wild did not care about Zelda. Like that was a series that it's similar to like Metroid. Like they don't care about Metroid at all. The whole world doesn't care about Metroid in comparison to the things that people care about. But like they don't care about Zelda. Breath of the Wild changed that, and this is like the product of that. And it's not even like, because I think that this is another thing that even Nintendo kind of like got wrong in terms of like their perception of like why and where Zelda actually is. It's not that the Zelda IP now matters to people. It's that this franchise and this gameplay, this world, this matters to people. People like this gameplay loop. And like, like the control scheme, the way that the game's structured. Because like, I mean, like obviously on the Switch, each Zelda release has gotten a little bump, like it sold more than it would have otherwise. But it's not like now that that Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom is out, every Zelda game is going to sell 10 million plus units, because that has not happened. But a game that would have sold 1, 2, maybe 3 million units is now selling 4, 5, maybe 6 million units. And the big Zelda games, where like the biggest one before Ocarina of Time just scratched the surface of 10 million with the help of multiple re-releases, is like shooting that number into the stratosphere in the first 3 days. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just for some context too of like Tears of the Kingdom to Breath of the Wild. So this is apples to oranges a little bit in that the numbers that we're seeing for the biggest video game launches in Japan are physical and digital, and so that was 2.24 million in that first week for Tears of the Kingdom. Looking at the lifetime sales on Famitsu, just game sales, where to go? Breath of the Wild, by comparison, in Japan specifically, has sold 2.2 or 2.18 million physical sales. So, that could be up to maybe twice that. Probably not. Japan's pretty strong on physical. I think, let me make sure this is true. Does this include digital? No, that's retail copies sold only. So, but yeah, still, that's insane. Like I remember when Breath of the Wild crossed 1 million units in Japan, and that was like, it was the first Zelda game since Ocarina of Time, which just barely passed 1 million in Japan specifically. I think again with the help of both SKUs. And then
this is lifetime.
Past it,
like,
and this is just like
lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. And it just like knocked it out of the park. So it's crazy because like I just looking back at the trends of Zelda games, typically like one will sell well, and then like Ocarina of Time sold pretty well. Majora's Mask didn't sell as well for sure. And then like oftentimes just the sequels to games haven't done quite as much as the ones before it and stuff like that. And of course there's been some situations where some of them come out on, like Wind Waker sold better on GameCube than Twilight Princess on GameCube, but it sold way better on Wii than on GameCube. Yeah. So, all those kinds of things. But all that to say, like, for this to be doing these kinds of numbers coming out of the gate, like, who's to say kind of what if it'll catch up to Breath of the Wild's total sales lifetime now that Breath of the Wild's had 6 years in its,
I think for sure
behind it.
Like,
yeah,
definitely.
I mean, but it seems likely for sure, especially because it's not like, taking a game like Splatoon, for example, where it's like, it kind of lives and dies, not entirely, but like there's a good bit of like the community that bolsters the sales and stuff like that. So you could have it open up really strong, but if the community, like, it seems like in Japan it's still doing great, but it feels like from the outside looking in that Splatoon 3 is not like keeping traction as well as Splatoon 2 from where I'm sitting, which isn't saying a whole lot. I could be wrong about that for sure.
I mean, I would say I think it's doing pretty well.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
it's like in Japan, it is like the biggest thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
In the US, it is like people like it, but it's not. It looks like it's small by context because in Japan, it is the biggest thing.
Looking at the like split on the last Nintendo fiscal quarter stuff of like units sold for games in, like, most of the time it'll be like units, outside of Japan is like 10 times more than in Japan or whatever. Right. And the split for Splatoon 3 for last year was like a 50-50 split or something, which is nuts considering just geographically the world.
Exactly. Like that's the thing. Like, like the thing about, and not to say that you're like trying to diminish it, but
no, for sure.
Splatoon, like, I think the breakdown is like roughly like, I think Splatoon 2 did like in the ballpark of like 5 6 million here and like 3-4 million in Japan. That is to say like 5-6 million units sold here. If that's all a game sells, pretty good. But 4-5 million in Japan is nuts. That is like, that's crazy. Like that's Mario Pokemon numbers. So yeah, it's like Splatoon is a really big deal.
But yeah, so I guess the point there is just that, like, so something like Splatoon or, another game that has a like online element or has basically all that to say Tears of the Kingdom is like
Japan.
Yeah. And like, but the Tears of the Kingdom just as an evergreen title can just keep growing without having to have, especially with all the,
it's not like, are they still producing content for this? Is the meta still active? Like, there's people still talking about when it's a Splatfest or a tournament or whatever is happening. Like, Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have to rely on anything like that. It's like the game is the game is the game is the game. So
and as long as people are still singing its praises, then people will still be buying it.
Exactly.
They will, from the sounds of it.
Yep.
So yeah, it's nuts. So yeah, but yeah, those are some of the numbers things. An interesting bit too is I didn't actually read this full quote, but I saw that it existed, so figured, you know what, let's bring it up. So to your point too earlier, you mentioned that, like, you know, people love this series, and so it's off the back of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as what they are within the context of Zelda as well, but it's not just the Zelda name that's like holding it up to these, you know, massive heights.
Right.
And so, but like the future games, TBD, you know, how sales go for those based on those kinds of things. So to kind of factor into that is Eiji Aonuma was asked a question regarding kind of, you know, future of the series with, like, I think we were thinking back to like when Breath of the Wild came out, he mentioned that at least in thinking of the sequel, that it was going to be another open air game, you know, same kind of style, which obviously turned out to be, but still, you know, what does that mean?
Left the door open for traditional stuff. And I remember they did talk about like top down Zelda, like that sort of thing. So,
yep. So, so then here's this quote that I think is interesting to it's probably interesting because I haven't read it all the way, so we're going to find out. So he was asked, on that note, I think a lot of people share the viewpoint that Ocarina of Time was kind of the starting point for one era of Zelda game, laying the foundation for the several titles that came after it. Do you see Breath of the Wild as establishing the new blueprint or foundation for the next several Zelda games for years to come? And Aonuma said, with Ocarina of Time, I think it's correct to say that it did kind of create a format for a number of titles in the franchise that came after it. But in some ways, that was a little bit restricting for us. While we aimed to give the player freedoms of certain kinds, there were always certain things that format didn't really afford in giving people freedom. Of course, the series continued to evolve after Ocarina of Time, but I think it's also fair to say now that we've arrived at Breath of the Wild and the new type of more open play and freedom that it affords. Yeah, I think it's correct to say that it has kind of created a new format for the series to proceed from.
Nice. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know. I think to like reference what we just got done talking about. There's a lot of people that like pine for that format, but like in the grand scheme of things, those people are like a drop in the bucket of the people that don't care about that formula. Like whether they like it or not, they don't even know to like it or not because they didn't play those games.
Sure, yeah.
So to be like expecting them to go back from that is like, why would they? Like, why would they actively be like, nah, we don't like selling 10 million copies in 3 days. We'd rather sell maybe 10 million in 30 years. You know, like,
I mean, and I think too, there's an assumption oftentimes from fan bases. Like I think Zelda is going a little bit through now-ish what Pokemon was like 2016 or something around, you know, like back before Let's Go and kind of onward into now, which was that like a ton of the fan base then was vehemently against certain like overworld Pokemon. Like that can't work. It's got to be random encounters. Otherwise there's just no point. And I don't know that there's barely any. There's surely some, but it's a tiny minority at this point of people that are Pokemon fans that want that back. It's like actively play Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Like it is a pain. And so I think similarly, there's things like this where, you know, there's still, I mean, even staying in the Pokemon example, there's still randomness that occurs in finding Pokemon. Like it just streamlines the process and makes it the thing that you actually want instead of the thing you think you want, sort of a thing. And I think there's a lot of things like that are like Breath of the Wild did a hard, clean break from a lot of Zelda traditions. But I think a lot of things that people want back, there's ways to bring those, like the good parts of those back, but leave behind all the baggage and just have a, you know, best of both worlds kind of situation. And I think, you know, it's just in the same way that I never would have thought of Fuse as a mechanic, just because like A, probably just wouldn't have thought of it. And B, it just seems too ambitious to ever even consider, even if I did think of it. I think, you know, we're pretty creatively limited a lot of times, especially when we think about what things Nintendo would do, because they, in other series, have definitely limited themselves in this way or that way, so that we're like, oh, but it's Nintendo, they'd never do blah, blah, blah. And like these two games especially have showed us that is just like not in the cards. Like if they want to do something at this point for Zelda, they're going to do it. And that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like people in general, especially people that don't make things, are bad at imagining what it takes to make new things. So they're like, well, I think it's hard to make something new. Why risk making something new when making that new thing could be worse than the old thing that I like? Just keep making the old thing because I know I like that already. And I something I've realized retroactively in talking to people about Tears of the Kingdom specifically, a lot of the like more traditional Zelda fans and stuff like that, it's not even necessarily that they don't like what Breath of the Wild is. It's that they don't know how to engage with Breath of the Wild in a way that takes advantage of what makes Breath of the Wild good. They see Breath of the Wild and the reason why they have this whole like I like it's not a Zelda game attitude is because they try to play it like it's a traditional Zelda game. Right. And that makes Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which I mean I want to get to that because I do have some gripes that we talked about. I mean they're minuscule in the grand scheme of things. I love this game, just to be clear. But like they'll play it like that and that makes the game worse. Like it is very boring to play the game like that because that's there's none of what makes Breath of the Wild good in trying to approach the game like that, where it's like, I'm going to do exactly what the game tells me to do, and I'm going to follow what I think is the main quest line. And if I do this thing and I beat this shrine this way, and it just flattens the experience.
Yeah. And the number of people too that I've seen, and this isn't even necessarily that they're doing it disingenuously or anything, but be worried about like, I don't think I'm going to like this game because of all of the like crafting mechanics and all of the building stuff and all that, which is like, and we talked about this even before the game came out. And I get that. And I get that can be intimidating, but honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, just don't even bother engaging with it until you just decide you kind of want to, because something just makes sense and you want to try it. And then when you do, like it's one of those things where you can just like dip your toe in it until at some point it'll probably be fairly comfortable, and then you'll do it without thinking about it too much. And and then get that much of a better. You're not far
enough in the game for this specifically. But I will say I don't think that this is a spoiler. If you think it's a spoiler, people, I don't think you'll think it's a spoiler, Parker. So I'm comfortable in telling you. But if you think this is a spoiler, skip ahead friggin' 20 seconds or something. But the game, one of the abilities of the Ultra Hand later is an auto build feature. So everything that you've built.
I think we knew that before the game even came out. I want to say that was in either previews or something, because I remember
I don't think a lot of people know that.
I don't.
With you. Right. Because like literally I was watching Tundic stream and he was like man, I wish that the game would like remember stuff that you build. And like I was playing the game as I was watching him stream it, and I unlocked the auto build and I was cracking up. I was like, that's thing hilarious. That I just watched you complain about, I just unlocked. It is in the video game. But to more directly like address the issue that people have is it's not even just stuff that you've built. The game has pre-built things
that's cool.
You can like queue up to.
And you just have to like have all those things around.
Yes. Or if you have Zonite, you can use Zonite as a stand-in for the thing.
For like fans and those kinds of like, but maybe not like planks or something
everything,
like that.
Literally everything.
Oh, really?
It's just some stuff costs more Zonite than other things. Interesting. But you can auto build anything as long as you have the Zonite for it. You can build it.
Which like, I mean, same thing. I mean, it's kind of like the recipes thing where like, like now instead of having to hold everything in your hands, like, and I like this way of doing it way better than like, I don't know, you still are picking a recipe from a menu, but you just go to the
But
thing
it's
that
more
you want.
tactile than that.
It's more tactile, and especially it's like, I know that I want something that will be, cold resistant or whatever. So you go to pick a chili pepper, and then at that point you're making whatever recipes that you've made before with a chili pepper specifically.
Exactly.
So you can go in having the intention of like the thing that you want it to do, rather than like finding, a dish on a list kind of a thing. And that's way better.
And you can work
I
backwards
know,
from that. Like I do that still to this day, where I'm like, yo, if I have rice, I know I can make a worthwhile recipe, because literally rice plus thing equals rice ball, and then rice ball plus attribute equals spicy whatever, chilled, like that whole thing. This is a similar situation where it's like you work backwards from that. And even to go further than that, a lot of areas in the game just have pre-built things where it's like you don't even have to go to that. You could just walk up to this area and move the thing, and there you go. You don't even got to build it. It's there. And past Zelda fans on the back, it's just like walking into an area and being like, oh, I got the arrows for the glowy eye guy. That's what I got to do. Use the thing I just got. It's like it's there for the people that need it. But for the people that don't or don't want to do that, you can build your solution. It was funny when I was streaming this, I was like doing a shrine, and somebody was like basically trying to help me with doing it, because like how I was doing it was not how you were supposed to do it. And I got through the first part just doing it how you're not supposed to do it, and then the second part they told me like how you're supposed to do it. And then after I did that, I was like, well, I could have just did this. And they're like, yeah, but I like doing it the right way. And I was like, yeah, but I very don't. Like at every turn, I'm trying to think like, what is the way the game doesn't want me to do this? And will it work?
I watched, I saw, I think it was Thrill House on Twitter put, it was, the caption was just, I like building boats or something like that. And it showed a little boat looking thing, and they turned around and it was, and I did the shrine the exact same way, which was that you have to use a log, and then in the next section you use 2 logs, and the next section you use more logs to like get across different areas or whatever. And then at the last section, really you're supposed to put a bunch of fans on these logs that it gives you. But I'd brought all the previous logs with me, because I was like, I don't know, who's to say, just maybe. And so I brought all of them with me, and I was like, I mean, I know what you're supposed to do here, but I just made a super, super long bridge across it. And then there was a chest over to the side, and I just like ultra hand picked it up and like and moved it over there. And it's just fun to do things the wrong way, because you can. And that's just nice.
That's the best part of the game. Because sometimes it's straightforward enough to be like, all right, this is the way you're supposed to do it, and I'll just do that. But a lot of times the very specific solution that they're thinking is like a frustrating one, which I guess to segue into like where we're at so far, where you're at so far, because I'm farther. The opening area of the video game. I saw a thing. I think this is like a IGN article or something. It might be a different outlet, but it's an article that somebody was like, Tears of the Kingdom's opening is the best Nintendo opening ever. And I was like, I don't even think, like, I think Tears of the Kingdom is a better game than Breath of the Wild, but I don't think that the opening is as good. I think the opening is aggressively worse. Because like where Breath of the Wild opens up and it like teaches you that the game is open, basically, with how it works. It's like you can play this however you want. That is there in Tears of the Kingdom to an extent, but it is definitely trying to funnel you into learning about building, and in the process of doing that, it limits how the game works and like the flow of that opening section. And the fact that you open in the sky and you don't have a glider funnels how you traverse the world, because you can't glide. So it's like, like that whole situation was frustrating. I think that I definitely, and having gone back there since, I would have liked the opening to this game way better if they just gave me the glider. Like,
yeah.
I've
thought about that too.
It was very annoying getting the points and being like, well, I could do X, Y, and Z, but I can't do X, Y, and Z. So I had to turn around and go to a different thing.
Especially with like having played Breath of the Wild and being so used to having the glider there, you know, like, because you played the Great Plateau and you didn't have a glider throughout all that, but that was max. Like, I think I honestly spent probably like 10 hours or so on the Great Plateau, just kind of interacting with everything. Like the first time I played it, I was there forever, which that's a long time for a pretty small section of the game. But still, compared to then, you know, hundreds of hours of the rest of the game.
It was because you wanted to be there.
It's because I wanted to. But like at that point, the rest of the game, you have a glider. I'm used to having a glider. So going into an opening section and being like, oh, this is the thing I'm used to, but without a glider again, feels also just like.
See, but the thing is, like, I thought about that, and that's not even what it is for me, because I've replayed Breath of the Wild multiple times at this point. Like, I've streamed it. I don't think that the game feels restrictive in Breath of the Wild. Like, the way that it's laid out, it doesn't feel as restrictive in that game, because like gliding in the Great Plateau is just it just speeds up something that you can already do anyway. And there's everywhere on the Great Plateau, there is a solution to being able to get from point A to point B everywhere. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, I gotta climb a very like special way. I gotta figure out like, okay, what are the holds here? And like, you know, like that sort of thing, like climbing in the rain, like how you would approach that sort of thing. If you're not in the right place, there is at least that path that you can do there. But in Tears of the Kingdom, from my experience, the solution was almost always, I can't be here yet. I need to go like somewhere else. And there will be like a path that I can traverse if I leave this area. But that was never a thing for me in Breath of the Wild, where it's like, I can't be here yet. It's just, I'm not supposed to be here, but there's a way to get through it. It's very, like, Tears of the Kingdom in this area specifically is very Metroidvania-esque in the worst kind of way, in my opinion. But it's just the opening. I do want to be clear about that. I am way past that, but I do think that it is important to mention that they took a step back in this regard.
I'd be interested to go back and see, because, like, where those, you know, basically, like, what all paths can you take and how many options there are. Because I think, like, the spot where you got stuck the first time, if I remember right, was going up to the what's the third one that I got? Not Fuse, not Ultra Hands, not Recall. It's before that. Oh, Ascent. It's the one where you get Ascend and there's like the ice wall and stuff like that.
Yes.
Because I found a spot where you could climb up there on the side or whatever, but it felt like there should be more options than that in any case, to where like you could have gotten up there, but I don't know. It seemed kind of out of the way.
Even if it was a thing where, because what I found after the fact was, I think I know what area you're talking about, but I had to physically leave where I'm at. And Breath of the Wild, you don't have to do that. if there's like a place, even if it's raining, there is a way to get from the bottom of anywhere in Breath of the Wild, even if it is raining, and get up there. You don't have to leave and be like, okay, well, let me, you know, it's just like, I got to climb up this specifically or in a like a particular way, but I don't have to leave. I just have to think how to get through it. Even if it was a thing where like I can find a way to melt the ice or part of the ice or whatever, that would be a more Breath of the Wild like way to do it. But in this section, at least, the solution was usually like, okay, let me either go to the other side of this or let me see if I can find a cave entrance. But I think that's a way more like traditional Zelda-y solution, where it's just like, I'm not supposed to be here yet, so the solution is to go somewhere else and come back later. Which doesn't feel in the same spirit.
I think, it's interesting because, I mean, it's a delicate balance, I can imagine, too, where like it does want you to have all the tools you want to, or not all the tools, but like all of the training, I guess, to like use Ultra Hand and all this kind of stuff, like know that stuff before you get off of there, but also have it be as open as possible. So like that's a trickier balance maybe with these tools, I feel like, that are for sure more complicated
Yeah.
than the ones from Breath of the Wild were. And so, yeah, I don't know that they necessarily landed that plane quite right.
Yeah, because I
but-
would say, like,
yeah.
I do think that is what it is. Like, they are trying to funnel you to make sure that you understand what is more complicated.
Right.
But I also think that, like, in the similar way to, like, Mario Odyssey with the coins in that one area, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, you should allow for a not complicated, like brute force way to get through the thing. Because if I figured that out, if I figured out how to get through that, you don't think I could figure out Ascend? Ultra Hand. I can't figure
Yeah.
out Fuse. I think I can figure that out. So, like, I get it. I get what they were trying to do. I don't think that what they were trying to do is necessary in this.
Also, I'll take just because out of here, I'd be interested. I'll take a little video or screenshot or whatever of the spot where I ended up going up for that bit to see if that factors in or changes the tune on all that kind of stuff. Just to, I don't know, overall, in case that makes the game like, oh, okay, it was doing it better. And
See,
to
the
your
thing
point,
is, like, when I was talking to you about it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But then, like, independent of me saying anything to any of these people, multiple people that I talked to playing this game had the same problem.
Yeah. I mean, I had a problem. I even had Ultra Hand, and I was like, I think I was trying to do it at kind of like, not the way it was supposed to do it, but the way that I wanted to do it anyway, kind of a thing. Which I think probably what you were supposed to do was like make a log ladder sort of situation, just climb up it. I'm realizing in retrospect, but I was trying to make a log. I got some fans out that I'd gotten and was trying to make a little log, like, hoverboard kind of situation to fly me up there, and that did not work because the logs were not straight ones; they were like all wobbly ones. So it was not going well. So I was like,
I couldn't
whatever.
even do
And then
that
found
at the point in the game that I was at. I didn't even have Fuse yet.
Yeah,
So I couldn't. I physically
Yeah, right, exactly.
that. So it was
But
like,
honestly, so my thoughts with the opening are it's not better or worse, I'd say, but it is different. I think it's, as a sequel, it having so much like story kind of stuff, little cutscenes at the beginning, and kind of like a slower paced opening, even if it's not for very long as compared to, like, you do have control of Link immediately, but you
to be
also
clear,
kind of lose
none of
control.
that is what I'm talking about. I do think
Yeah, I know,
what,
yeah.
what the IGN, I think, article was talking about, I did end up agreeing with, because I do think that it was like that side of the Metroidvania of like, man, I come in this, I got the full stamina, I got more hearts than is
Yeah.
possible in the video game. Like, that part was dope. It was like just the fact that you open the game on the Sky Islands. I do think that probably would have been a smoother experience if they just gave you the paraglider.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah. So as far as like where I'm at in the game, I played so I took last Friday off to play and didn't really get to do that as much as I wanted to. And so I played some the night before, a little bit, and then I played a little bit throughout the day, and I've not gotten to play since. So I'm at basically I just like finished the Sky Island stuff, got down to the ground, and have done one shrine and just a couple like little random things. I found a little bokoblin camp that I was quote unquote underleveled for, and just messed around with a bunch of different silly ways to try to beat them. And it took a while because I kept doing stupid stuff, and like the lookout kept spotting me, and trees are apparently enemies now.
Oh yeah. Did you?
And
did
so all
you
sorts
like?
of silly stuff.
Do you know how to beat them?
I mean, I shot them with fire in the end, and then
Okay,
that
so
worked out okay. But is there a better way?
you could just use an axe. Like, using an
that
axe
makes
is
sense.
literally 2 hits.
Yeah. There it is.
That's another one of those things where that is the Breath of the Wild thing, where it's like, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, that was just
totally.
my first thought. I was like, I didn't even know that, like, because later I did, just out of curiosity, I was like, I'm gonna try to fight this with a sword and then see what happens. And it's like, this takes way longer than just taking on an axe. And I was like, yeah, that checks out. That makes sense. And fire also makes sense, but it takes longer than just taking on an axe and chop.
It takes
and it's
longer.
dead.
but it was the stealthy approach, which that I kept like getting in trouble by like running in there, and then things would happen, and like I was getting one shot by all of them, and that was frustrating.
You faced it by yourself?
Yeah. Oh, what? Maybe. So like there was a little bit
I'm not
camp.
going to say anything else.
Okay.
I think I know what camp you're talking about. But
maybe not. I don't know that it wasn't. So
did it have a health bar? Like when you went into the camp?
No,
it
it didn't. It was just a small, like it was like a blue bokoblin and like 4 red bokoblins and 2 trees and a lookout bokoblin. So it was like one of those things where like I had just come down from the Skyland, so I didn't have that many resources. Yeah, I had some stuff for sure, but but no, I didn't face it by myself. It is, I will say, as an aside, being however far I am into the game, which is not very, it's so like I can't barely be on Twitter now, where like I'll scroll past something and see that it's Zelda and just like kind of just like try to unfocus my eyes for a little bit while I scroll past it. And yeah, what a time, you know? So, but yeah,
I mean, I think
that's about where I'm at.
That's why my first thought when I was talking to you about it, I was like, I'm gonna text him. Because usually we talk on DMs. But I was like, I'm gonna text him for me to not have to go on Twitter, and also for you to not have to go on Twitter. But
smart. It worked.
You gotta go on Twitter at some point, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, that's about where I'm at. So where are you at? I mean, for other people's sake too, I guess, you know, no spoilers.
Yeah,
and all that stuff.
I don't want to talk like story specific stuff. I do like there's certain like I got the Master Sword. I was not supposed to get the Master Sword. So like it's that sort of stuff, which I think that's dope too. Like the fact that I just happened on the Master Sword. I just played the game normally, you know, like even in Breath of the Wild. I mean, there is a thing that you have to do, a thing that you have to have to get the Master Sword that I just so happened to have. But in Breath of the Wild, it's like you have to have a certain amount of hearts. So it's like you could find it and be like, okay, well, I gotta, you know, maybe reallocate or I gotta finish more shrines or do whatever. I literally just found the thing. I got the sword and then I was like, all right, I guess I have the Master Sword now. That was dope. And there's a lot of different moments like that. It's weird to quantify like how far I am in the game, because it's weird to quantify how far you are in like even Breath of the Wild, because the stuff that I did is like disparate, you know. It's like I have 2 of the 4, I think, 4 like main areas, the phenomena,
I don't even know what that is yet, so
that's a quest.
Okay. Vaguely. I mean, we've seen
it's the main. It's one of the main quests.
We've seen even in pre things, like obviously Death Mountain has some stuff coming out of it, and like there's somewhere there's a tornado.
But
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Those again, I don't know any story spoilers. I'm just going based off of you know, promotional material. So I don't know what the other 2 would be, but I assume there's 2 more based on those kinds of things. So
yeah, I wasn't going to describe anything about it. I'm just saying that like the equivalent of like in the Divine Beasts, I did 2. Right. I did 2 so far. But I'm not going to talk about them. I'm on the 3rd, but I'm trying to specifically do them on stream. So I'm going to yeet and finish that on stream. I do have thoughts on the dungeons, but again, gonna wait until you get at least one of them and then we can talk about that. What else is there to talk about? I did so like the memories in this game, I found like 1 or 2 at this point I found all of them, but I found 1 or 2 initially, and then after I found 1 or 2, these are way like more straightforward in finding, because like you can like physically see them while you're gliding, because how it is it's like you know, like in the things, I don't know what the real world name for this thing is, but like in Sword and Shield, you know, that big like drawn thing that's in the earth.
No.
It's like a
geoglyphs, Trev said.
Yeah, the geoglyphs in the game. Yeah. But I don't know if are they called that in real life?
I don't know.
I don't know if they're called that in real
Glyphs,
life, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. How we've seen, like, yes, in
So that's what they are. You
yeah,
can
even the
see them.
promotional, I was like,
you can
oh,
see them
what
when
are
you're
those?
gliding. You can physically see
Yeah.
them. So I went out of my way to be like, I just want to see all this stuff because the one that I saw one that I was like, that's crazy. That is nuts. I need to see how this turns out. And then I went and I found all of them. So I found that. And that's why it's like weird to quantify because like Breath of the Wild, I don't think I found all the memories until after I beat Ganon. Like I did that super late and Breath of the Wild. But
because they were, I mean, yeah, you had to like come right up to the spot. It was like within a basic, like what feels like a 10-foot radius, and then like a little fuzzy something's there, and you walk into it, and like you can't know where those things are without. Like I remember passing by where some of them were, and having to like look up where are the rest of the memories, and then come back to it and find it or something along those lines. Like, yeah, they're a nuisance for sure to find.
But in this game, it's like doubly like super apparent. It is apparent from the sky, and then once you get on the ground, there's something that you got to find, and that is super apparent. Nice. So that worked out. I got that. That's cool. I don't really want to talk about that thing that I just thought about. The mini bosses in this game are cool. I still don't think I found all of them. I doubt I did, but I don't know if you've seen on Twitter or you've been avoiding my tweets in that way, which I don't blame you. But I ran into two things specifically that I saw and I immediately turned around. I was like, I am not prepared to fight this thing. So I refuse to even try.
Yeah. No, I didn't see those yet, but I'm curious.
One of them is an old enemy. That is in
interesting.
Other Zelda games. So
I mean, so again, I'm just going off of, because I don't consider things spoilers if it's just in promotional material that's existed before the game even came out. So like we saw in promotional material, a flame Gleeok, for example. So that would be like one of the mini bosses, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I found an electric Gleeok.
Okay.
That's what I found. And I didn't see that, or I didn't retain that. So I was like, what the heck? And then when I was fighting it, or when I ran it, I saw that and I was like, I can't fight this. I am unable to fight this. I just jumped off the porch. Ain't no way I'm fighting this thing. Way later, like this is, I didn't have the Master Sword at this point. But it was pretty close to when I got the Master Sword. I was established. I had at least 2 temples at this point. I was like, I could probably fight this thing now. And I went to go fight it, and I hit it with, I had like a 25 base power weapon or something like that. So like a decent weapon, not like a late game weapon, but it's pretty good. And I swung at it, and the amount of damage that I did was not even like notable. I didn't even take a pixel away from this thing. I was like, I can't fight you.
Trev just said you do 0 damage to those things. I tested it today with a very powerful weapon, and it didn't do any damage.
Yeah,
this was like a late game weapon.
Like I was like,
what's the trick?
I'm out of here. I'm going.
Yeah.
I think that. Well, I have an idea of what I might got to do, but again, I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah,
which are spoilers.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, like, to be honest, in Breath of the Wild, gold Lynels are way harder to fight than Calamity Ganon himself, so like, because one of them's optional and one of them is like, everybody's got to beat him if you want to beat the game. So Calamity Ganon is not going to be, the worst thing in the world completely.
Right. Plus, have you fought Calamity Ganon without getting all the divine beasts?
No.
That's also part of it. Just just getting off of the Great Plateau and immediately going.
Oh yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Because that takes away half of his health.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, also then there's just like an element of weapon stamina and stuff too that you have to come in with, and so that kind of. But like just mechanically
you can
or whatever.
Get late game weapons.
Yes,
just
of
by
course.
going through the castle.
Royal Claymores and stuff. Yeah. But it is, just mechanically speaking, and like, being like dodging well and all that kind of stuff. in my opinion, gold Lionels are like harder in that regard than claiming it. So I'm curious in this game,
just by parrying.
If there's also
he does the freaking Guardian laser.
Yep, and you chuck some bombs and all that kind of stuff. So like, I'm curious in this game if there's some of the mini bosses or enemies that it's like will actually be the Gleeoks, for example. Who's to say how those end up turning out? But do those end up being harder bosses than the final boss?
Whatever's at the end. I would assume
Ganondorf,
but
I would imagine, but who's to say?
Who knows?
Yep.
I don't. I think that, and I might go back here as a off stream thing. But I went where the Hyrule Castle was. And I got to a point and I found a thing, which it was cool how you found the thing because it made sense. But I died to the thing because I didn't have arrows, and you need arrows to fight this thing. Well, you don't need them, but it's way easier if you have arrows. Which actually, no, I didn't. I had arrows. I didn't have a bow. So the game's making fun of me basically because a big part of the game, or like pretty much everywhere that I've been, especially at this point, most chests that I find, most boxes that I find, most freaking barrels that I find, all have arrows. All the time. At any given time at this point in the game, I had like 200 plus arrows. I had nothing more than I had arrows. But at this point, I have a bow. Now, I have bows and I don't have arrows. It's like the game heard me complain about the fact that it's giving me too many arrows and was like, bet I'm never giving you another arrow again.
Yeah. Man, it is yes, that kind of thing. I definitely noticed in the early game for this game that arrows do seem more plentiful, just however far in I am, where like I'm never lacking for arrows, whereas I do feel like I was in Breath of the Wild in early game, whereas like arrows were like a nice little resource that you had. But it is, I mean, just getting back into this world and all this kind of stuff, like I forgot about, not like really forgot about, but just like was reminded about things like, oh yeah, you can pick up your own arrows. And, I knew that, but I've played so many games at this point where those kinds of things are just not mechanics that exist.
Right. Exactly.
And it's one of those things where like it makes sense. And also it's just so nice. Like that it's like, oh, I missed, but like I can just go over there and just go pick it up again and stuff.
And speaking of arrows, this is unrelated, but Alec is a psychopath. So you can, as we know, you can put things on arrows. That is a big mechanic in the game. That is not a spoiler. And he finds things like, you can find like rubies and diamonds and stuff like that. And his first thought is always, I want to put this on an arrow and shoot it at a thing. And I'm like, you are crazy. Because like, if you're going to fuse a diamond to something, why do it to a one-use thing? Why not put it on something that you're gonna have and maybe even extend the life of that thing? Like there's nothing in the game. Maybe that's the Gleeok friggin' solution, is you gotta shoot it with a freaking diamond or something. But I would never know that because that would be the last thing I would ever do. It's like rare thing that like at the very least I can sell for $500, which that's another part of this game. The economy is effed. The economy is so messed up. Again, I don't know if you saw this tweet, but I went to freaking Kakariko Village and they had the stealth armor set. It's 5,000 rupees a piece. The whole set is less than half of that in Breath of the Wild. That is crazy. But yeah, no.
What's the rationale for that? Like,
I have no idea.
Is there just way more money to go around in this game?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Interesting. Man, I don't know. What a time.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Good
Inflation,
game. True. I'm excited to a couple things. And I know these are things, but like going back to areas that are from Breath of the Wild. Okay, so I will say this. I love the redemption arc of reusing the same worlds that like pre the game coming out, everybody was like, reusing the same world is going to be awful because we've played this world before, blah, 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 blah. And so it can't be fun. And now seeing comments that are like, this being the same world is like the best part of the game because I can go back to this area and be like, what's changed? How's it going, buddy? And like, see.
And even beyond that, I mean,
what's going on?
I don't know how much I want to say about this.
But
we were right about a thing. I'll just say that. And also, we already know about the Sky Islands. So that expands the game greatly in terms of like the surface area. So there's that element of like the world that you know and that you can like just walk to has grown a lot. And then also there are parts of the world that were not accessible before and that didn't exist before, that expands it even more. Like there is a reason why this game took longer to make than the original game, despite the fact that they had the original game to work from. This game, like a lot of people, including us, have made the like just knee-jerk opinion of like, this is like the Majora's Mask of Breath of the Wild.
It should be fast.
It's not. It's absolutely not the Majora's Mask of Breath of the Wild. This, and I want to make a video about this. I talked to you about it. Is probably the best sequel ever of all time. Period. Yeah. In video games, like
it's
they
crazy
use
too
the
because
medium very well.
It's not like I think there's a lot of other sequels that. I mean, with exception, because like I'd say not that I've played either one of them, but The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 is a sequel in that it's continuing the story. And if you've played the first one, then the second one is better for it. I'm sure, you know, people don't like, there's controversy around the story and all that kind of stuff. But that aside, I don't know and don't care. I haven't played either of the games.
Right.
So, but the idea in any case that like, if you played the first one, the second one is richer for it, as opposed to, I don't know this for sure because I haven't played any of them and know even less about them. But like the Uncharted games, they seem more like where they're more standalone stories, but like obviously they're connected. I don't know.
I would say that it's the same thing. It's the same thing. As
never mind
the Last of Us kind of situation. I think for the most part, when people think of sequels, and I don't even know what the difference. It feels like, you know, the meme flirting versus harassment, like that whole meme.
Sure.
Where it's like if it's from a source that you want in a way that you want, it's an entirely different thing, which genuinely it is. That is what that sort of situation is, where it's like this, you know, it's just a glorified DLC,
right?
When it's done in a way that people want, this is a great sequel. No, Tears of the Kingdom compared to Breath of the Wild is one of the best. It's the best. I feel confident in saying this is the best sequel ever to ever happen. And I'm going to do a full video explaining why I think that. And it's not even just like the amount of content, which is usually the reason in video games. It's like, it's more content. It's prettier. It continues the story that I know even further than that, down to the way that the development of this video game worked. It is the best sequel. There will be a video about that when I get done with the game and I write it. I have so much footage. I need to buy hard drives because that's the thing that I've been doing. I don't know when I started it. I think it was with Arceus is when I was like, I'm just going to record everything that I always do ever in a video game now because footage. And that's been helpful. So I just never stopped doing it. I'm like, all right, if I'm playing a video game and I'm at my desk with my setup, I'm just going to record all of it. So now I have like, I don't know, like 30 hours, give or take, of footage of this video game. So if you need any footage for a video, I got it.
Yeah. I've not been taking nearly as many screen captures as I'd like. There's a lot of things that'll happen and it's like, oh man, I should have gotten that, but it'll be like, you know, too late at that point or something. But yeah, again, haven't even played that far into it, so I'm sure there'll be lots more things, and I can do that. But probably should also clear space on my SD card to be able to do it.
I did that. I did that too. But I see the thing that's funny about that is like I did that exclusively for tweets because I've been tweeting a decent amount.
Yeah.
About like I just look this thing that I found.
Yeah.
So I've ran out of space. I never even saw that message before. I have space on my SD card, but I just don't have enough space for replays apparently. Because the Switch was like, you can't save any more of these, and I was like, what? So I went through and I did the connect to computer thing, which is like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I needed a specific program to be able to do that because it's like an Android file or something. So I did that. And I dumped all my replays from my Switch onto my computer and deleted them off of my Switch. And now I have free reign again. So yeah. Follow on Twitter if you want to see more of my Tears of the Kingdom shenanigans and or Twitch. All linked in the description. My Twitter's on the screen.
Yep. So surely more to come from that. And maybe we'll talk more about it. Well, there's Q&A about it. So we'll talk more about it in a bit. The only other news bit that I've got pulled for today. I guess we never technically talked. I mean, no. Yeah, we didn't do the podcast last week, and that's when the financials. Yeah, it happened. Money, games. Good job, games. Good job, Nintendo. You sure did it. In any case, doesn't matter. But the only other news bit, Pokemon Home is coming to Scarlet and Violet, and I felt like that would be something you would care about. So
less so now. I'm kind of like on the outs with I'm usually on the outs with the battle system in this game, but I'm super on the outs with the battle system in this game right now. So like,
are you guys still doing the?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why it got me tight. Because I lost 2 of my battles, and the way that I lost the 2 that annoyed me anyway was the same. And it is a big flaw of this battle system. And that's all I'm going to say on that. But yeah, no, I'm down. I still play Pokemon, but I don't really care as much about the battle system. I think that the next like season that we do, we definitely got to revisit some stuff. But what TBD on that.
Yeah. Well, there it is.
TBD.
So that's the news. And then now back to games we're playing, technically. The only other one I'll throw in there, because, we talked about Tears of the Kingdom. But prior to Tears of the Kingdom, since we missed last week's podcast, was a little bit intentional by one day originally, by the way. So, and then we were like, oh, let's do a Friday instead of Thursday so we can play the game and then record it on Friday and it'll all work out. And then I was like, hey, I can't do today. We'll just have to do it a little bit late. And late was the next podcast. So here we are.
I'll say we do got to do a better job at like tweeting that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like when it happens, it's fine.
Yeah.
But we just got to be like, it's not happening because of this. We'll talk about this stuff later.
Indeed. But so something I would have talked about then is, I finished Live Alive just in time for this game.
I think I saw you tweet that, but nice.
I think so. Yeah. I tweeted it a couple days late, I think. Technically, I finished it. It was, I think you tweeted
Monday, it, or at least I think I saw the tweet the day that Tears of the Kingdom was coming out. And you're basically I just finished this game, excited to be able to like not have to think about it. Now that I'm done, Tears of the Kingdom time.
So I think I technically finished it on Monday of that week before Tears of the Kingdom.
To us. You're hiding.
Yes. And just forgot about tweeting it out until then. But so I finished it then, and I could tell at some point, like Sunday when I was playing it, I was like, I could go fight the final boss whenever I want. Like I'm at that point, and I hadn't like maxed out all of the various things that I could do or something like that. So I was like, I've got a little bit of time. I'm just gonna just max out my people, or not fully max them out, but just like do all the things that I want to do, kind of take my time before going to the final boss instead of going and then like maybe having to come back or whatever. So I did that, and there's just something to be said for, there's a lot of games where the difference between having a good time and having a great time somehow is just seeing everything there is to see in them. Like I've said it before, but I think the reason that I felt kind of mid about Xenoblade Chronicles definitive edition, just one, was because I didn't really interact with the whole game all that much. Like about halfway through, I just beeline to the end. So it was a good experience, but I know for sure that if I'd like done all the things I was like could do in it, I would have enjoyed the richer world all the more, blah, blah, whatever. So all that to say, I feel like I did a much better job of that with Live Alive. And cause it's it was like 30 hours, I think, total by the time I finished it, for my playthrough. And that is a good game. It's nice. I keep forgetting to look up, like,
was right.
He was right. Yeah. Kevin and Xeon were where I feel like the two people like egging it on, and then various other people. But yeah. What was I gonna say? Something. Yeah, I don't know. It was good. I'm glad that I played it and all that kind of stuff. And then all that to say, I had bought several cheap games or just games on sale a while back, and I knew Gato Roboto was really, really short. And so I almost finished playing that in the couple of days before Tears of the Kingdom, just because it's like a really short game. You played that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They sent it to me.
So
it's cool.
Nice.
I like it.
It's a fun little Meowtroidvania, as it were.
Hate that. But yeah,
You're welcome. I'm sure I'm not the first one to say it, but
yeah, for sure.
But it came to my brain.
That was
so
in the email, in fact.
Honestly, probably. I wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah.
You're welcome, Alec. Yeah. So, but yeah, otherwise that's all that I'm playing now. It's just as soon as I get back to getting to play Tears of the Kingdom, I will do more of it, and I can't wait.
I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom. Not too dissimilar. A little bit, because less people. I guess like it's just because it's not the immediate thought. But for the most part, I'm playing this, and Youth had like, she texts me and she's like, "Are you playing the video game?" And sometimes I am, but most times I'm not yet. But she's like, "Go to the Discord. I want to play the video game." And I'm like, "All right, let's play the video game." And I'm playing video game and sharing the screen. And then sometimes Trev only came once. Once. Alec pulls up sometimes Mega Man's there. It's a good old fun time. It's not as good. I mean, not as good in terms of like the communal experience,
right?
As Pokemon, because it's not as like of an active thing that everybody like their first thought is like, "I'm playing the game. I'm going to Discord. I'm going to show my screen." But like also that's because like it's a Zelda game, and it like there's definitely
by nature it's a solo activity.
not even necessarily that. It's just like it's a Zelda game, and the people are used to playing a Zelda game in a particular way. I think Breath of the Wild is like, in particular, is a very communal experience. Like a lot of people, the way that they experienced it is similar to that. It's just not an active like playing the game and seeing what the other people are doing. It's, "Oh shoot, I just did this thing, let me tweet it," you know. So I think it still lends itself to that. It's just not as active of a thought, because you don't need to be there to do it. Like in Pokemon, it actively made the game better to be in the same place, because we can go into a union circle and all play the game together and physically go to the thing that each other sees and see each other experience it. But it's still like that still exists in this, I would say. So that's been cool. Like I said, Pokemon, but I'm checked out. I'm doubly checked out on Pokemon right now because Tears of the Kingdom exists, and I'm estranged right now with the battle system specifically. But I'm playing that. I actually I don't even remember how this conversation came about. I think it was, so I entered Coinbox, as I try to do every time that it happens every other week. I freaking went 3-2 again, which is like, I'm just in this frame trap of either going 3-2 or 4-2, which is like not, I go further than net neutral. I don't go negative, but I want to go further than that. Like, I know if I can go 3-2, I can go 6-2, you know, like I can, I can make a run. But I'm like stuck at the same point.
That's frustrating. Yeah.
And so I was talking to Quid about that, because I sent that to him and I was like, "Yo, this frame trap is ridiculous. This is the worst frame trap I've ever been in. Way worse than anything Kazi has ever done to me." And then he gave me a lot of tips, and he basically was like, "You should enter more brackets. because the bracket that like you enter one bracket every other week and it is the biggest one. So you're like throwing yourself into the lion's den, as it were.
Right.
Where you could make a much deeper run and get way more experience if you open a bracket that's like less big stakes, like top players aren't entering this bracket. And it's not even because of the top players that's the issue, because like just based off of my own experience in it, I was talking to him about this too, where it's like I feel more comfortable. I would much rather fight a character I understand piloted by a player that is much better than me, or at least should be much better than me. Like I feel like I've fought multiple top players, including him and Tweak and stuff like that, and I've never really felt that out of my depth against them because I understand their characters. But when I'm fighting with random Game & Watch player that I never heard of before, I don't know what the heck's going on because I don't know anybody that's even halfway decent that I play with on the day-to-day with that character. So it's like it's this like pop quiz of like, all right, character knowledge, go. So that's why he thinks that I should like try to go to more brackets so that when I like have those early rounds with those obscure characters, they're with players that are like worse, basically. So I can like find what the universal weaknesses are of their character because they're not as good at hiding those flaws yet. And make a deeper run and test my bracket stamina and like that sort of stuff. So I'm going to try to do that. I think that that's like a whole thing though, because I got to figure out like the main reason why I even do coin boxes because it's convenient with like the Pokemon raids and stuff like that, because they're every other week. The coin boxes every other week. So it lines up. But I need to find other brackets that are like ideally probably like on Fridays, because that's like a day that I don't actively have to do something, and then certain days on the weekend depending on the week. But yeah, I'm probably going to try to do like enter like 2-3 brackets a week and see what that does. So that's been happening. That's been fun. That's been a good time. And once I think that like as far as like Pokemon, something that I like initially I pushed back on when we were doing we were setting it up and we're like, what should the rules be? There's like in the Pokemon format, like VGC, they have a thing called Open Team Sheet where like you have to submit what your team is and it shows Terra types and moves and stuff like that. And at first I was like, I think that would be less fun because like people will be able to like get off less stuff. But in practice, it just feels bad losing because like you never would have like guessed this gimmick. And you don't. It's not. It doesn't come down to who's more prepared. It comes down to who came up with the more like obscure gimmick. And I think that it just feels less competitive. And the whole point of this and why we did it in the first place was to limit the random guessing and make it feel more competitive. So I think that that's probably going to be a balance patch that I'm pushing for. And the next thing is more stuff.
I mean, that
makes
seems
it
like
feel less random.
from the outside looking in any case, that kind of seems like the meta at large in general is like people finding loopholes and then people finding, and then that's like the meta for a while, then people finding a patch to that. And then that's the way that the ladder works
because it's all best of one. So the stuff that proliferates is the stuff that nobody knows about, and it's like, I'm gonna get this trick off. It would never work again, but it'll work this one time, and that's all that matters. That sort of thing. So like I think limiting that would actually make it at least feel, because I don't mind losing. Like I lost to Mars and that like in my last battle, and that felt like he was more prepared than me. I did not take this seriously at all, so it makes sense that I lost. But the losses that I had before this, it was like I literally lost because I guessed wrong, and that feels terrible. And it doesn't feel like I lost because I was outplayed. I lost because something that I couldn't control. And RNG, which is another part of it. But I think that with RNG, Open Team Sheet helps with that a little bit, because if I look at a team sheet and I see somebody has sleep powder or whatever and an item to make sure a sleep powder hits more, I can prepare for that specifically to limit the randomness of the game saying like, oh, you lost because I say so, But if you don't know that that's there, it's up to the whims of the game, and that, again, that feels bad. Especially compared to like when I play something like Smash, and when I lose, it's like I pressed the wrong button here, you know, like I got like outplayed in terms of like they hit me with an attack that put me in a better position for them to follow up on than I put them in for them to, for me to follow up on. So like just playing those two competitive games and watching those two competitive games and seeing like what is more and less competitive is what has me feeling the way that I do, where it's like a lot of stuff just comes up to chance, a lot of stuff, and you can't like completely get rid of that because that exists in real sports. Like there's a lot of chance in basketball, you know, but it's not completely determined by chance, and that I think is the difference maker. Whereas like Pokemon is like almost entirely determined by chance. There's chance in every interaction. There's high damage rolls, there's low damage rolls, there's critical hits, there's whether you hit or not, there's how many sleeps of turns, like sleep, there's whether a status condition procs or not. There's so many RNG checks in that game that it just can feel like it didn't matter what I did. I basically wasn't playing, the game was, you know? So we'll see. But I love the world, so... Yeah, that's the frustrating part. It's like I wish I could like the game because I like everything else about it, or I wish I could like the battle system of the game because just playing the game casually or whatever is fun. But the competitive part of it is frustrating because it's not actually. It feels like playing competitive Mario Party, which is an oxymoron.
Where like you played all the mini games the best you possibly could, and then at the end it's like the bonus stars go to the person who got the lowest rolls and did the worst, you know. You're like, okay, cool, nice, awesome.
Which could be competitive if the game Mario Party told you ahead of time and was like, these are the bonus stars you're playing for now,
sure,
go for this thing. You know, but
and then try to win even while getting, you know, or try to exactly then
play for this
that's
win
a
condition
twist.
But I mean, and that's why Mario Party is the way that it is, because anybody can win for any reason. But Mario Party by its nature is not a competitive game. Pokemon describes itself as a competitive game, so I think that should be mitigated a little bit or a lot of it, but and they think that too. But I do think that like stuff like Sleep Clause, which is like a community specific thing, like that should be built into the game, because like there's stuff like that's why like leading into this, and even like when Arceus came out, like the way that they handled status in Arceus is infinitely better, because like paralysis, like there's a chance for like not being able to move, but that's just it. There's a chance for not being able to move. With sleep, there's a chance that you might be able to move, which is like sounds like a small thing, but it's a huge thing, you know. Like at least with like paralysis, it's like, okay, first of all, you have to do the check of like, will the move work, and then you have to do the check of, okay, will the move hit, and then like it can hit or it can't hit. But with sleep, it's like if I miss that check for sleep and I don't wake up, I just don't wake up. And it's things like rest, for instance, like that has a 2-turn, like you for sure cannot move for these 2 turns. And it's just like drowsy is a way better mechanic. I think that like dinging your stats and then making it so that there's a chance that you can't move, rather than like you're almost guaranteed to not move, at least for 1 turn, is a better way to handle that, personally.
I agree. Especially, I mean, also just thinking logistically, I mean, in the game world or whatever, I don't know. To me, it makes more sense that I can't imagine really a Pokemon would just fall all the way asleep,
deep slumber, into REM sleep.
Like that. That seems, you know, I mean, obviously it's also a game where, you know, mice shoot electricity and all sorts of other things. So like, you know, suspension of disbelief
but also the mouse is shooting electricity. You're going to sleep through that?
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like, man, that really hurt, but you know, let me catch some Z's.
Yeah, exactly. Even if I
Trev
think,
said sleeping Pokemon stay dodging moves too.
yeah, that's crazy. I don't know if this is like an anecdotal thing, because there is stuff like that. Obviously, as a kid, that's like I logic something that didn't have actual logic. Like like I was talking about Pokemon Stadium, where it's like certain things look like it can hit you in like when you're flying, but it just doesn't have the chance. Like if you use Ice Beam on a flying Pokemon, it looks like it missed, but it could hit because it aimed up there.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, maybe this is a thing, but I'm pretty sure that you have a higher chance, if not a guaranteed chance, of like breaking out of freeze if you use a fire type attack. That sort of thing. Like if you get hit, you should be guaranteed to wake up. It should always happen. Like getting one guaranteed hit off of the sleep. Okay, cool, whatever. But like if I got hit once, I'm waking up. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Because otherwise, it could be used as like, that's a setup move. Like you put them to sleep so you can buff yourself, or you can do this out of the other. Which
I threw you and I comboed
reasonable.
off of the throw, basically. I threw you and then I comboed you off the throw and then I got to grab you again.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yep, it's true. All right. Well, there you go. That's the games we're playing. Now, last but not least, Q&A. M. Skelton asked, "Why is DK so fun in Smash?"
He is fun. It's crazy.
It's just because his up B is so powerful, and that's
his up B is ridiculous. But I don't know. I like his dash attack. It's because like, or at least what I think, it's because like DK is really fun because his moves are really good. He's just bad. So it's like he has terrible attributes, but his moves are good. So like it feels good to play him because like when you hit somebody, you're going to do damage. But then like if you get hit, blah blah blah. But usually if you're playing DK, you're playing DK in the context of like we're just goofing around. Like I'm playing with somebody that's not using their main, or like I'm playing against somebody that I'm better than or whatever. I would never use DK in bracket ever. But it's fun to use DK, like a bad character with fun moves in the arena for that.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
That makes sense. And then also said, make a case for Little Mac being top tier, even if you don't believe it yourself. Also, see, Big Macs are not top tier, and that's as far as I got.
There's what's the problem with Big Macs? Is it because there's too much Mac?
There's too much Mac, but Little top tier, you know?
I mean, honestly, I think Little Mac is underrated. I think it's ultimately like, so in Smash Ultimate competitively, myself and a huge swath of the competitive community, just call like every character that's like under like the middle of the pack a bad character. Because like if you're worse than 40 characters, you're not good. You know, so it's like if 40 characters are better than you, you are bad. That is where Little Mac is, where it's like I wouldn't say Little Mac is the 80th worst character. I would probably put him in like, he's probably like 70th, you know, maybe like 75th worst at worst. But it's because freaking aerials in Smash Ultimate are broken. And he is bad in the air. So it's like, you know, like if you're bad at the thing that at the law of the land, you're going to get stepped on. But the thing that is good about Little Mac is that if you hit, and this is another thing that's like less explored, especially with like better competitive players usually, is they try to mitigate weakness and like inconsistencies. But with Little Mac, if you're winning, you are winning hard. Is the thing. So like if you can like hit your opponent first and get that forward smash or hit their shield with the thing that's going to break it and then kill them at 40, it's crazy. So it's just like you just gotta use his speed and his size to your advantage to like bait people to swing in unsafe ways so that you can hit them in a way that kills them. But yeah, his speed and his size is why the closest he can possibly get to being top tier. And the fact that he has very fast smash attacks that kill at really early percent. Also, KO punch that you can combo into. You can combo into KO punch. That's crazy. That is nuts. That thing kills.
Are combos like that dependent on the character you're playing against? Typically, like their weight and all that kind of stuff. To a certain extent,
yes. But there's some okay. So there's like percent windows for combos usually. Like like the difference between like Smash and like a Street Fighter is like in Street Fighter and every other traditional fighter, combos are guaranteed. It's like, well, I got this low high. I mean, I got this like low light or whatever, or this high mid. I mean, high medium or whatever, right? I'm definitely going to be able to get this next jab off. In Smash, it's like, all right, I might be able to get Squirtle down throw into Waterfall on Bowser from 0 to like 60%. But it's only going to work on Squirtle from like 0 to like 30%.
Right. Yeah.
So it depends on like, you know, like knockback ratios and like that sort of thing. And that's basically the whole thing of it, right? Where it's like, in Smash, there are like true combos that is like, this is definitely a thing. And like you can learn them by looking them up in a kind of like command list sort of way because YouTube exists. But for the most part, the way that like, myself and the people that like the top players and like people that get the game early and figure out those combos to make those videos. The way that those combos are made is by looking at those launch angles and saying like, oh, they go here. I can probably do this next. And basically free flowing it. So I don't remember what started that. Oh, it was because you can combo off of it. So with Little Mac, you can freaking down tilt most characters in the video game, and the down tilt puts you a little bit up and a little bit far away. It's not high enough for you to be able to like drift away from the KO punch after the fact, and you get the hit is fast enough, and he can lead off of it like it's not active for long enough for him to react and press B for the KO punch before you can air dodge or get down to the ground and shield for the most part. And that's crazy. It's nuts. It doesn't always work, but it works more than it should. True.
There it is. Moving back to Tears of the Kingdom, Let asked, if you could have one of Link's abilities from Tears of the Kingdom, what would it be and how would you use it? I guess like in real life.
I'm between Ascend and Fuse.
Okay. Tell me.
Ascend just feels like it would be cool. It's like a thing where it's like, look what I can do. Like, that's the whole of it. Just because it would be cool. Fuse would just actually be useful.
What, like, give me a just real world, you know, day-to-day situation where Fuse would come in.
So the way that I use Fuse in the game a lot is when I need to use multiple things. Like there's this mission where they tell you to bring them a certain amount of tree logs. And the way that I bring them the tree logs is I just chop down the trees and I fuse it. It's within a time limit. You got to do it in under 45 seconds or something like that. I fused the 3 tree logs together. I ran there and then I shook them to break them apart. And then I had 3 tree logs. If I could do that in the real world, where I'm like, I got to bring something downstairs, and instead of making multiple trips, I could just fuse it all together and freaking yeet it downstairs and then unfuse it. And then it's all there.
Yeah. So Ultra Hand then, because I fully agree.
Oh yeah, that's whatever. It's the same thing. No, I don't know why I just make those two things the same thing. The same thing.
So 100%. Like there was there's a little mini gamey sort of thing where you talk to a girl and she has a bunch of little sand seal plushes and she goes, oh no, they all went into the water, and then you have to like get all 10 of them from the water in under 3 minutes is the thing. Did you do that?
No. I did it's I don't know if I want to talk about it. I mean, it's not a story spoiler really. It's this thing where there's like a talking cucko And Talking Coco is like,
interesting.
yo, get the 3 trees. And so the Talking Coco is like supposed to tell your fortune, and it's like, I'm only going to tell your fortune if you do these things for me. And that's one of the things, you got to bring in 3 tree logs in 45 seconds or something like that.
Yep. So this, Youth asked, is the answer to that Ultra Hand. I don't know if it has to be, but definitely the way that I did it was there were like some, planks and stuff like that off to the side. So I made like a platform before the timer started and then put that out kind of in the water, where I could relatively Ultra Hand reach all of them and then talk to her and like went out to there. But then I just like Ultra Hand grabbed all of them and just fused them all together, or like Ultra Handed them all together.
See, that's the thing.
And instead of taking them all out and putting them in her little
or fuse or whatever 100%. They want to call it.
Instead of putting them all in like one at a time into her little thing, they were just in one big clump. And I took all the planks and all of the little, stuffed animal things and just put it upside down and just plopped it down into her cart. And I won. And I felt it was a nice little thing. So all that to say, Ultra Hand, 100%. There's just so many things. Even if it's like, man, I want the chips that are across the room or the remote and I don't feel like getting up. Ultra Hand and grab it but from far away.
The range on that is not as good as it seems like it is or should be in a lot of situations.
True. Yes.
Which is also true with Ascend. Like sometimes, and it's because they don't want you, I'm sure. It's like, we don't want you to break this that much. But the range on Ascend is sometimes not the best. But it really doesn't matter because... Well, I don't get into that. There's ways to get around it, I'll say. Not in shrines, which is annoying. But
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I'd imagine the shrines are pretty like meticulously crafted to something.
It's just in the same kind of way that like you can't climb in a shrine.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
The thing that I'm talking about, you can't do or use in shrines, which is annoying. But fair enough, I guess.
Yeah,
but it's also because like the equivalent of this thing is less limited in the shrine. So like, fair enough.
There it is. Alec in the comments is talking about he sold the diamond instead of fusing it to an arrow and shooting at.
Oh my god!
Here's the thing though, just do a little quick save before shooting it, and then reload your save to see what happens.
Yeah, you could do that.
That's what I'd say.
That's a more respectable way to do it.
When I get a diamond, I will do that, Alec, and I will tell you what happens. And yes, as Trez says, the game autosaves often. It's true.
It does.
But, just, I will take that risk.
That would be super unfortunate. If the game
but there's also multiple, you can choose which autosave to go back to.
Yep,
so, it is, thanks. Man, this game, it's a crazy bunch of stuff and it looks so nice. And there's controversy.
No, it doesn't. The game was terrible.
Yeah.
David Jaffe said so himself. Because we all know that that great game that we all play that David Jaffe made.
God of War?
I was being facetious. The fact that you even had to have the question mark is what I'm talking about. And even the God of War, the version of God of War that he is responsible for, not good.
Yes,
not
right,
a good
exactly.
game.
I mean, I know people like it.
Yeah, but those people are dumb. Turns out. I'm just going to say it.
God of War 1 and 2, and not even God of War 3. And the last game that he directed was Drawn to Death, and I've never heard of that. And
there's a reason.
I don't know.
That. But yeah, David Jaffe, bad game developer. I'm putting that out on the table.
Or at least I don't know. Yeah. For if anybody doesn't remember, also, so yeah, he made the comments about this game's great and all, but it looks terrible, blah blah blah, which is like.
This doesn't look like a freaking third-person action game on the PlayStation 5. So therefore, bad-looking game.
He also is the one that when Metroid Dread came out, he was like, this is terrible game design, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And obviously just hadn't like did not know how to play the game at a part where like the tutorial straight up shows you how to do the thing the right way, and he could not do it. And so I was like, I mean, anybody can have any opinions they want, but like
in a vacuum, like if the game didn't literally show you that thing, he would be right. Because like if the solution is like just shoot everything and eventually you'll get there, that's terrible advice and bad game design. But the fact that the game literally shows you that it's like, oh, if you shoot this thing, it blows up and you can get through it. It's like, bro,
it was a silly time. So yeah, next question. M Skeleton asked, Pura, you know what I mean? I don't know if I do know what you mean. I've only met her one time in the game so far, so who's to say?
I think I do know what he means, and shame on you.
I don't even remember. She's an old lady and a kid and a young lady all at the same time,
she's
right?
Like the anime trope where it's like, she's not really 12, she's actually 3,000. You know, that
right.
whole thing.
Yeah, man. That. So there it is. Merc asked, what's the greatest, dumbest thing you've built in Tears of the Kingdom?
There's a lot of, this is also kind of adjacent to the Arceus thing, but not really, because he's not playing the game. But like, if I'm not playing, so after stream, a lot of times when I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom, I still get off stream and I play Tears of the Kingdom, but I go in the classified Discord server with Lee and Wes. Wes is almost never there. It's usually just me and Lee specifically for this, or like this string of time. I just stream the game to Lee, and there's a lot of times where, because he doesn't have it yet, there's a lot of times where I like go up to a thing like a shrine or whatever, and it's like, obviously I'm supposed to build this, and it gives me like an example of the thing where it's like, you could just use this if you want, and I'm like, yeah, but what if I fuse more? What if I do more things to it? And I was just like, it was a gliding thing. It was like one of those gliding things, and I was like, what if I put every rocket and every fan and every flame emitter that this gives me access to on this one glider? And I did that, and that's the craziest thing that I built. It's a freaking war machine.
I love it.
And I died.
I can imagine.
But I only died because like I was trying to go somewhere or like fly to like look for the chest, because I was like, there gotta be a chest here somewhere. And then I freaking hit a wall, and then the thing flipped, and then I fell off, and then I got yeeted back to that area, and then I didn't have any fans and any rockets and any I didn't have anything to get to where I was, but I could like freaking climb up the thing and then yeet and then fly and then grab it and then fly back. But yeah, that was because usually the game, if like you like, there's always the fail safe of like if you get like soft locked, which doesn't really exist in this game for the most part. But if you get soft locked, you could just leave the shrine. But also if the thing, like if something that you need is off of the level like completely, it will respawn. But it wasn't off the level. So I was like, I know I can get this because it didn't despawn. So I went and I did, because I didn't want to rebuild it. Like I could have rebuilt it. I could have left and then rebuilt the thing, and I didn't want to do that. I was like, I want to use my freaking war machine. So I went and I got it, and we're here. But yeah, that's the craziest thing I built.
I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to build that many crazy things, so I think mine is probably the Sand Seal plush thing so far. So nothing too crazy, but excited to build more crazy things
also,
when the time is right.
I know you haven't been on Twitter a lot for this stuff, but somebody sent us.
Oh yeah,
did you see that?
Oh no.
Somebody tweeted at the redirect Twitter.
I've not seen that.
But somebody tweeted at the redirect Twitter and was like, what do you think about this? And cringed, like. But anyway, they built like
was it the thing that was going around? No.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. It's a giant robot with a penis, basically.
That's the one.
And I'm like, I don't know why. I mean, I know why. But I don't think I don't know why like people think that is like funny, interesting, cool.
It's interesting because it's a question of like, in some things, it's like, can I, like,
Yeah,
will
but why
I be
is that
able to
your
make this
first
thing?
thought?
And this one's like, no, you totally could.
This
Like, you
game
don't really
is
need to
made for
even
8-year-olds.
ask the question.
This game is made for children, and your first
Yeah.
thought is like, I wonder if I could put a penis in it. Like, seek help.
I promise you, you
Get
can.
therapy.
If you can make things at all in a game, I mean, that's a whole story, not a storyline, but that's an episode in Mythic Quest. There's an episode where they're like, you know what, in this game, which is, you know, basically, it's like some kind of MMO sort of thing. They're like, we should build like a digging mechanic. You can like dig stuff and you can build stuff or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, people are going to make a penis in it. And they're like, no, it's going to blah, 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 blah. And like the first thing that happens is somebody made a penis in it. And
Yeah.
sure enough,
Yep.
there's probably like a 24-hour rule where within the first 24 hours, if you can make something, make
Somebody
penis.
is making a penis. Yeah.
Yep.
Seek help.
So there it is. Mega Man, last question, asked, how long do you think it'll take before you head to the castle from where you're at right now?
How, what do
Long.
you like? How many real world weeks? Because I'm planning on doing that anytime soon. To be honest, I could probably get there now. Honestly, I know where to go. I almost got there, but I was like, I don't have arrows, so I'm not going here. Or I'm not exploring this area further. Is more accurate because I didn't go to like wherever the final bar. I didn't actually reach the castle, but I know that I can get to the castle from this place for sure, for sure. But I didn't do that yet, and I don't. Like I said, I don't really want to fight Ganon. I might go to the castle, Ganondorf. I might go to the castle and just not fight him. But I don't plan on actually fighting him until like I do everything. Because that's something I didn't even do in Breath of the Wild. Like in Breath of the Wild, I beat all the divine beasts, and I was like, I guess I gotta fight Ganon. And I did that, but I think I'm probably going to save that for last.
Yeah.
This time.
Same. So yeah, it'll be a while. And with that, podcast is done. We did it.
Done.
Thanks so
We
much,
did
everybody,
the
for stopping by.
thing.
And we'll see you next time, you know?
There we go. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the stuff. Tell a friend about the podcast. If you're on podcast services, again, rate it, man. If you like the podcast, if you hate the podcast, rate it. If you're on YouTube, and you didn't already, like the video. Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.